Moving on with our next session. Now, this is, of course, a virtual session. We're talking about Digital Health Summit, and we are using the technology for this one to have with us Mr. Mayank Bathwal, Chief Executive Officer for Aditya Birla Health Insurance, who's in conversation with Mr. Sarbvir Singh, Joint Group CEO, Policybazaar, for the Fireside Chat on role of health insurance in driving cost-effective quality healthcare and delivering patient-centric outcomes. I know they are not in the room, but I'm absolutely sure they can hear us. I'll request you all to kindly put your hands together and invite our next panel virtually on the dais. Welcome, Mr. Batwal. We're waiting for Mr. Singh to, there we go. Mr. Singh is already there. Can we have some volume up for the screen? Mr. Batwal, can we check your sound, please? We can hear you, but I would request the team to kindly up the volume a little bit more. We're trying to get the volume up from our side, Mr. Batwal. Just give us a moment. Is there any way you can increase volume from your side, sir? Yours, we can clearly hear you now.
Sir, we have to start?
Sure, I'll start, man. So, I guess good afternoon, everyone. I guess it would have been easier in person, but I hope you can see and hear us well. My privilege to share this platform with Mayank. I assume that there's an introduction to the speakers, but just in case there isn't, Mayank is the CEO and MD of Aditya Birla Health Insurance. He's been with, I guess he's been an industry veteran. He knows the space very well. So look forward to talking to him today about the role of health insurance. Maybe I'll just start by saying that giving a view from a distributor's perspective, or I would actually like to say that Policybazaar is a platform where customers come to buy insurance on their own violation. So this is a platform where people come looking for health insurance, and hence we believe that they tend to be relatively well informed. They are looking for more information, of course, but they come with some information. Stepping back, I think why is health insurance important? If you think about it very simplistically, there are events, and I think the last 2-3 years through COVID have taught us that there are unexpected events. And when these unexpected events happen, there is a cost involved in that. And I just want to share that the health insurance product in India today, and even if you compare with other developed or developing countries in the world, is an excellent product. And why do I say that? I say that, one, because I think the pricing, especially when you compare adjusted for purchasing power, etc., is at a really economical and it's a really good value for money. Literally, the cost of a cup of tea or coffee per day can cover you and your family for health insurance. We are a young country, so premiums reflect that. I think the second point is that, which is I think lesser understood sometimes by consumers, is that we have lifelong renewability. This is a very, very powerful feature and is not available in most countries, where essentially what it means is that the insurance company, once having accepted your risk, has to always offer you a quote. And the quotes and the pricing is, of course, controlled by the regulator as well. So it's a lifelong contract that the insurance company is entering. The third thing I would say is that, which is again different from other countries, is that you can go to any hospital. So typically there are restrictions in most countries, but here you can go to any hospital. Almost 60% of claims right now are cashless, and the industry is moving towards even higher share. But you can get reimbursement for the rest. Typically, there are still no co-pays or deductibles, which again is a very, very customer-friendly measure and is not again prevalent anywhere. So net-net, all I want to say is that I think health insurance in India right now is a great proposition. The industry is doing a terrific job of providing this product at a very affordable price. And since this audience is likely to be younger, I would say that it is very good to start young, because, of course, it can happen at any time. Plus, you cover your waiting periods, etc., which get covered. So I think uh, starting young is a very important thing. And one last point before I ask Mayank to give his perspective is that health insurance is moving towards a holistic solution. And again, Aditya Birla has been at the forefront of this movement, where we are talking not just of hospitalization, but of wellness, OPD, other wellness programs which will help manage disease, etc. So I think the industry is offering a very good product, which is very good for customers, as well as moving in a direction of holistic wellness and not just hospitalization. With that, maybe Mayank, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Sarbvir. I think you said the context very well, in your opening comments. So I'll probably not kind of repeat or read, what you've just said. I'll just say that I think given the fact that health insurance is one offering which every individual must have in their, financial product portfolio, and typically one of the first product that anyone must have apart from, let's say, a banking offering. It becomes imperative for us to collectively find a way to make it be provided to every citizen in this country. Now the question is that why isn't that happening? And I think that we have to solve three problems, and each of these three problems can be actually solved leveraging the emerging tech and digital capabilities. And I'm assuming that this audience, there must be a fairly large representation from that community, given that this is an IAMI event. I think each one of you has an opportunity to play a role in solving. So let me just kind of give my quick perspective, and then we'll kind of delve deeper into these. The first problem is awareness. And I think to some extent, whilst COVID has sorted that problem, but there is still work to be done in making people really understand a little bit more deeply on what really health insurance covers, and what it covers beyond what people actually may kind of understand today, because there are various benefits that come under health insurance. So that is one problem to be solved. The second one is about relevance, because typically the Indian consumer at times believe that these products are not relevant to me because maybe I'm young, I'm healthy, or I'm not a sickness condition will not happen to me. And to some extent, that is also because of the earlier avatar of health insurance, which was more Mediclaim, to what is now kind of emerging, and kind of, so we referred to that briefly towards the end, and again we can talk about that in more detail. And especially relevance to each segment of consumers, and in some way, when the consumer today is starting to kind of experience a very hyper personalized experience on digital platforms, how do you create that relevance for consumers? And lastly, the whole issue of experience, that if the consumer does buy this offering, what's the experience? Because I think consumer expectation on experience has gone to a very different level today, given the fact that when they experience the Amazon and the and the Flipkarts and the e-commerce experience, or the Twitter or the Facebook or the Google, I mean, all their social media platform, the whole intuitive experience. So how does a product like health insurance, which is a very traditional offering in its in its earlier avatar, how does it morph into something which can be experienced by consumers in the way they are used to, and what it is their expectation? And I think each of these three areas can be very well kind of solved by leveraging the emerging tech and digital capabilities. And I'm very happy to see, in fact, many players coming up in the area of insurtech, health tech, fintech, to solve. In fact, to a very large extent, in Policybazaar, we saw one of the biggest problems getting sorted, which is access to a consumer in the way they would like to kind of explore and then buy products on the large platform that Sarbvir and team have built from a access. And that's just one solution being solved, and there are many things that they're trying to solve. But I think that's my opening comment. But let's kind of dive deeper into some of these issues, Sarbvir.
Sure, man. And maybe I'll just pick up from what you spoke about. And I think one of the things that we always keep discussing is uh, the penetration of health insurance, right? And just to give you all some numbers, about 5 crore Indians have retail health insurance. Another 15, 16 crore Indians have corporate. They're covered by their companies, and then another 30 odd crore Indians are covered by government schemes. So in some ways you can say that 50 55 crore Indians are covered by something or the other, but the other side of the glass is that only 5 crore Indians have retail health cover, which obviously is very important. Now the issue, as Mayank referred to, is that how can we increase this penetration? How do we believe that we have a good product, but why are people not buying? And one of the areas where I think technology and personalization is playing a role is to look at products and experiences by segment. Because the challenge is that different people, so this, as you know, the averages always deceive rather than reveal. And I think the reality of life is that different segments, so for younger audiences, for instance, one of the key issues is that why should I pay this premium? Because I'm less likely to fall sick and hence I don't really need to do it. And I think that's where the product has evolved. And again, as was being explained by man, that we now have a host of wellness features as well as an ability using technology to give back to you. So a very simple example of that is that if you walk certain number of steps, then your renewal premium is reduced. And now, given that all of us are carrying smartphones, etc., all of this is a fairly simple thing to both track as well as execute. So I think on one end we have what I would call benefits other than hospitalization, so that there is a value to that. And secondly, I think technology can be used to drive positive change. If we look at the other end of the spectrum, where someone might be older, where there is a higher chance of having some kind of disease, let's say diabetes. I'm sure you all would have heard that India is the diabetes capital of the world, and we have a very large number of diabetics in our population. Now, one of the things is that a lot of diabetics can be managed through care. So while the extreme levels need medication, etc., but better exercise, better diet can actually both reduce as well as manage the disease. Now, again, here, both the health insurance company and the customer are actually aligned completely in that if you could improve patient outcomes. So again, Aditya Birla has policies where they give you to the point that they actually have a coach associated with that, where they're helping you manage diabetes. Now, through a combination, now this is very difficult to do in a physical world because doing something like this offline is extremely expensive as well as not very feasible. Whereas through an online platform, through using an app, through using measurement techniques, you can actually nudge the customer to really develop better habits. And I think this is where health insurance is now playing a role far beyond just hospitalization, but looking at the overall customer. There are many such examples, and I'll toss it back to Mayank to talk more about them. But this is one of the, I think, very exciting and emerging areas in both insurance as well as healthcare.
Yeah, thanks, Abhay. I think very, very important, and you in a way touched about how do you make a product more relevant for consumers so that they can actually relate to, because at the end of the day, people do expect some benefit out of where they put their money in. So if in the in some way, if you look at the entire value chain of insurance, each of the each part of that value chain can be addressed by technology. The whole access part, the whole platform, Policybazaar is kind of addressing that. But even beyond that, today the question is, can insurance reach where consumers are also? So, and at least get them to experience product in its so-called bite size and its sachet size, which is what consumers are getting used to, avatar, and make the product relevant and contextual to that transaction. I mean, we saw a great pickup of, let's say, ride insurance during COVID on when we worked with Ola. Similarly, where on each of the large digital platforms, is there a way to kind of leverage the emerging design experience, etc., to kind of create products relevance there. I think if we move ahead today, the point is that I think health insurance sits at the intersection of financial services and healthcare, industry, and therefore the role cannot just be limited to what is traditionally the funding of healthcare costs, because that is seen more as sickness insurance whereas actually no consumer wants to kind of experience sickness insurance. Healthcare delivery itself is more sick care than healthcare. And if we are to change that, then how do we kind of actually convert what is a mediclaim is equal to sickness insurance into health insurance, and starts with the positive side of health, and therefore create a whole ecosystem of health and wellness. I'm sure in the audience, I'll not be surprised if some of my colleagues will be sitting. I know that Khushbu is sitting there from Xyla, and we're working together with her to kind of leverage digital health management techniques to capabilities that Xyla provides to see how we can help consumers with certain health conditions to manage that. So I think the whole and then access to healthcare, advice on healthcare, all aspects of healthcare, whether it's physical health, mental health, conditions management, nutrition health, etc. So I think that is becoming a possibility today, and that will kind of rewire how consumers experience health insurance. Similarly, I think one of the biggest friction points today in health insurance is when consumers experience claims, right? Today, because unfortunately, even though India exports technology to the entire world in many forms, but the healthcare industry and the way the health insurance industry intersect and engage, it's, I think, one of the most archaic ways. But because the whole information flow is so rudimentary, when things can be actually technologically and digitally enabled in a much better manner. And I think I'm glad that there health claims exchanges, which is like a pipe between these two important parts of the healthcare ecosystem, are coming up and emerging. Again, opportunity for budding entrepreneurs to actually enter that fray and see, because that it will not be one but multiple exchanges that will come up over a period of time, because in that there lies an opportunity. Similarly, on the data side, or when information starts flowing between hospital and the insurance company, how do you kind of make sure that it flows in digitized, standardized, coded flow? So are there opportunities for entrepreneurs or kind of data experts in that area? So I think that a lot of these problems which kind of came in the way of larger adoption of health insurance are starting to get sorted out, or at least there's very sharp visibility to make the whole category more efficient and much more customer friendly, whether it's the right products or the right experience. And I kind of definitely am excited and what we can do together in these times ahead. Sarbvir, further thoughts on, because I know that there are a couple of specific aspects that we should cover, and one of them is affordability. So your thoughts on affordability and how health insurance can actually help drive that, because that's also one question that comes up very often in the context of the industry.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think affordability is a critical aspect of, obviously people being able to afford health insurance. And one of the challenges I think in affordability always is that how do you how do you define or more sharply segment customers? Because we know that there are customers who can or should be charged a lower amount of money, whereas there are customers who obviously have to pay higher amounts because their claim expectation is higher. And one of the things I just want to touch upon is that, which one can't avoid in the insurance business, is that there is an element of rogue elements who come into the industry. And while these elements are a very small percentage of the overall pie, but they become a very large percentage of the claims cost. And hence the ability to manage these rogue elements, you can call it fraud, whatever. If you can do that, and if you can determine who is a person more likely to be on that side of the fence versus this side, then it can make a huge difference in terms of affordability. Now, one of the examples I want to share with the audience is something that we are trying to do, which is that people who live in smaller cities, right, many times find premiums to be very high. They feel that they're being asked to pay premiums which are perhaps very significantly higher than what their ecosystem probably can afford. But the challenge there is that many people, I mean, there are different types of people. There are people who move from smaller cities to larger cities for better healthcare. There are others who stay within their ecosystem. Then there are some others who are using those addresses, etc., for like I said, for wrong purposes. Now, if we are able to figure out, right, because we all know that there are zones which have higher fraud versus lower fraud. if one is able to figure out right up front that, okay, this person is, capable, is different from another person, if there is an ability to, manage. And I think today the technologies exist which will allow us to actually sharply determine who is a person more likely or less likely to be in which camp. I think this itself can change, the whole narrative and allow us to offer prices to customers which are very different from where we are today. So I think this is one thing that we are working on, which is to start to distinguish between customers. And partly this is through technology, because see, all of us leave a digital footprint. Finally, there is a digital footprint that we all leave. How much of that is a person willing to share? How much we can use to drive that? And finally, I think there is no substitute for obviously human intervention, where you are able to ask a few questions, or people who volunteer a certain amount of information are then given a better deal versus others who don't. So I think the role of technology in driving affordability, in, as Mayank very covered in detail, the claim side, the fact that if there is a health exchange, the cost of servicing claims will go down, cost of figuring out fraud will go down. And I think that itself, so these two things, one is the front end where you're able to offer a better, more customized product for the customer, and then the back end where you're able to reduce your overall cost of claims through technology, I think is a very fertile area. And I'm sure I come across many young entrepreneurs who are focused on these two areas. But I think the time is coming now that where the industry is also moving in that direction. And I think these efforts will start to gain momentum. And I think it's a really good time to look at this area. I'll just maybe hand over to Mayank for his thoughts.
No, I agree. I see, even if you look at it fundamentally, Sarbvir, what does health insurance do? I think health insurance, in a way, creates demand for healthcare, because people who otherwise would not have been able to afford good quality healthcare, if they have an health insurance offering, they can reach out and seek the right quality healthcare, which otherwise would have created a lot of financial stress, debt, and maybe not even ability to kind of seek that quality which they deserve. So I think if we are able to increase the penetration of healthcare, that itself by definition would create demand, and therefore would in some way encourage a deeper investment in the supply side of healthcare. Today, if you go down to tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 towns, where healthcare facilities, you don't see as much as you would want to, if more people have health insurance there, automatically the healthcare supply side will be able to go and set up shop there. Now I'm assuming that as as demand increases, there will be more volume for supply side, and therefore the cost of delivery, given the higher volume, should come down. And the other thing is that typically insurance is a business of subsidy, right? The younger and the healthier subsidize the senior and people with conditions. And I think we have to understand and accept this reality, because someday we will become senior and with some health condition, and we'll need the younger generation to kind of subsidize us. And therefore by principle it cannot be only for people who need health insurance, but who evidently don't see that today they need insurance, but they must buy, because who knows when a health event can happen. And also fundamentally to create a larger pool and larger volume. But at the same time, I think the more health insurance increases, the ability to kind of you know put a question, if I may take the liberty, uh, you know healthcare industry today has an ROE of 30% plus. I wish health insurance industry had that kind of an ROE. And therefore I do think that there's a margin of cost to be made more affordable. And I think larger the health insurance penetration, that can become a larger opportunity. I don't know how much more time we have, but I think this is a topic that we can go on. But if there are some questions, Sabir, I think
Sure.
maybe we can take a few questions if the organizers do feel that that's something that they like to do.
Absolutely.
Right, Mr. Bathwal, Mr. Singh, thank you. I think we can take one question or two from the audiences here. We'll help you out with the questions. Anybody has any questions for these gentlemen, please let us know. We can pass on a mic to you. Okay, that's about it. Thank you so much, gentlemen. It's truly an honor to have both of you here, and thank you so much for the insights. Looking forward to seeing you again. Hopefully, not virtually next time. You will be present here. They'll have a even more phenomenal impact on the conversations. But for this time, thank you so much once again, Mr. Bathwal, Mr. Singh. Let's have a round of applause for these two amazing gentlemen for being here with us.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite.
Thanks so much. Thanks, man. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll let you get off now.